After my husband died, I let my new boyfriend move in. He broke my daughter's pottery her father made, and I punished her for overreacting. Now she's cut me off completely, and I realize I chose the wrong man. I, 47F, lost my husband Mark 3 years ago after a long battle with pancreatic cancer. He was my high school sweetheart, the only man I ever dated seriously, and for 20 years, my life revolved around our little family, him and our daughter, Ellie, 19F. When Mark died, I didn't just lose him. I lost the rhythm of my life. Everything slowed, but somehow I was still running to keep up with grief, with bills, with being both mother and father. Ellie was 16 at the time, and in her own kind of free fall. She and Mark were incredibly close. He used to call her, my little shadow. When he started pottery during chemo, she'd sit in the garage with him for hours, watching him work the clay even when he was too weak to stand for long. After the funeral, I shut down. I kept moving, because if I stopped, I'd feel it too much. Ellie would cry, and I'd tell her to be strong. I didn't realize I was teaching her that strength meant silence. 2 years later, I met Greg, 50 million. He worked in a different department at my accounting firm. He was confident, funny, and kind in that way people who've never lost anything can be. I wasn't looking for love, I was looking for distraction. Greg made me laugh for the first time in years, and that laughter felt like oxygen. Ellie didn't like him from the beginning. She said he was performative, that he treated her like an inconvenience, that he smiled too much when you weren't looking. I brushed it off as protectiveness. I thought she didn't want to share me, that she couldn't handle me moving on. Greg was patient at first. He said all the right things, offered to help fix things around the house, cooked dinner a few times, made jokes about how the house needed a man's touch. He told me I deserved to live again. When he suggested moving in after 6 months, I hesitated, but the house did feel empty, and honestly, the bills were weighing me down. He framed it like teamwork. Let's make this place feel alive again. I convinced myself it was practical. Ellie, on the other hand, was furious. She said, Dad hasn't even been gone 2 years, and you're replacing him. I told her Greg wasn't replacing anyone, that it was time we both stopped living like ghosts. She moved into the spare room she'd always used for art projects and barely spoke to him. Then came the vase. Mark had made a set of pottery before he died. Nothing fancy, just things he made in his last year. One piece, a large, hand-thrown vase, sat in our living room on the old oak cabinet. The glaze wasn't perfect, but Ellie helped him with it when she was 14. He told her, "You'll remember me every time you see this." I dusted it every week. It was one of the only things I hadn't boxed away. Last month, Greg decided the living room needed updating. I came home one afternoon to find furniture moved around and decor piled on the couch. The vase was gone. I found it shattered on the floor, blue and white fragments everywhere. Greg was sweeping it up, saying, "I told you that corner was too cramped. It just slipped." I felt something in my chest twist, but I told myself it was an accident. Things break. People move on. Ellie came home not even an hour later. She saw the shards before I could say anything. I swear I've never seen her look like that. She froze, then went white. "Where is it?" she asked. Greg said, "It broke, honey. I'm sorry." She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. "You let him touch it?" "It was an accident," I said. "Don't start this." She started shaking, then yelling, "He doesn't belong here. He doesn't know what that meant. You let him erase Dad." Greg tried to calm her down, which made it worse. He said, "It's just pottery, sweetheart. We can buy another one." That was the wrong thing to say. Ellie screamed, "You can't replace my father with your handyman," and shoved past him. She locked herself in her room. I was furious, not just at her, but at myself for losing control of the house again. I told Greg I'd handle it and knocked on her door. She shouted, "Go away." I told her she was being disrespectful, that Mark would never want her to live in grief forever. She yelled through the door, "You don't get to use Dad to defend him." That stung. I told her to apologize to Greg or she'd lose privileges at home. No car, no going out, no guests. She said, "I'm 19, not 12. You can't ground me." But I did anyway. The next morning, she was gone. Her room was stripped bare, only the bed and desk left. A note on her pillow said, "I can't live in a house where he exists and Dad doesn't." I called her, texted her, nothing. She blocked my number. I eventually heard from her aunt, Mark's sister, that Ellie was staying with her. When I tried to talk, my sister-in-law said, "Leave her alone. You need to think about what you're protecting. I still don't understand what that means. Greg says I shouldn't feel guilty, that Ellie's reaction was manipulative and over the top. He keeps telling me I'm letting my daughter control me through grief. I told him she was hurting. He said, so are you, but you're not throwing tantrums. The thing is, I know Ellie's always been emotional, but she's also kind. When Mark was in hospice, she was the one who fed him soup when I couldn't stomach it. She'd read to him for hours. She was 16 but acted 40. Now I can't shake this feeling that maybe her anger isn't about the vase, it's about everything that's come after. I've been thinking about something Greg said last night. He told me, your daughter doesn't want you to move on because it means she can't keep being the hero in your tragedy. It sounded smart at the time. Now it just feels cruel. It's been 2 weeks. Ellie hasn't come home. She hasn't answered one message. I drive past my sister-in-law's sometimes, thinking I'll see her, but I never do. I don't think Greg meant to break the vase. I don't think Ellie should have screamed at him like that either, but maybe I shouldn't have punished her for feeling something I'd buried. So here I am, asking strangers. AETA for punishing my daughter for overreacting? Was I trying to parent, or was I trying to silence her? I didn't mean to choose sides. I didn't mean to choose Greg over her. I just wanted peace. I wanted a home that didn't feel like a memorial. Update 1. It's been about 3 weeks since my original post, and I'm not going to lie. Reading the responses was like swallowing glass. Some of you were brutal, and I deserved it. Others were kind in a way that still hurt, because kindness makes the truth sting more. The overwhelming message was clear. I'd chosen a man over my daughter. I'd silenced her pain because it made mine harder to ignore. That sentence has been echoing in my head ever since. After my post went viral, I tried to talk to Greg about reaching out to Ellie. I told him I wanted to drive to her aunt's and try again, not to argue, just to talk. He set down his coffee, looked at me, and said, Ellie needs to learn her place. It wasn't what he said so much as how he said it, sharp, dismissive, like she was a child throwing a tantrum, not a young woman grieving her father. I told him I wasn't comfortable with how he talked about her, and he snapped. Not yelled exactly, but raised his voice in a way that made my stomach drop. You let that girl control your life long enough, he said. Every time she acts up, you bend over backward. When do you get to live? I didn't say anything, because for the first time, I realized I'd stopped disagreeing with Greg a long time ago. I'd been walking on eggshells without realizing it. I'd been editing myself, softening my tone, picking words that wouldn't set him off. I thought I was keeping the peace, but I was really just shrinking. That night, after he went to bed, I sat in the kitchen with my laptop and read every single comment again. Some people mentioned manipulation. Others mentioned control. One person said, "You don't heal grief by replacing it, you heal it by surviving it." That line gutted me. The next morning, I made a decision. I packed a bag, got in my car, and drove the 2 hours to my sister-in-law's house, the one Ellie's been staying at. I didn't call ahead because I knew she wouldn't agree to see me if I did. When I pulled up, my heart was pounding so hard I thought I might throw up. I sat in the car for a minute before knocking on the door. Karen, my sister-in-law, answered. Her face said everything before she even opened her mouth. "Don't," she said. "She doesn't want to see you." I told her I just wanted to talk, just 5 minutes. Karen crossed her arms. "You've had 19 years to talk. Now she's got peace. Don't take that from her too." That hit harder than I expected. I told her I just wanted to explain. She sighed, disappeared inside, and came back a few minutes later. "She's not coming out," she said. "But if you're serious about fixing this, you should know something first." Karen handed me her phone. It was a screenshot of a message from Greg. My breath left my body when I saw it. He had texted Ellie weeks ago. "You need to stop making your mother feel guilty for moving on. Your dad wouldn't want her living in your grief. Maybe if you respected her happiness, you wouldn't be alone." There was more. Him saying she was just like her father, controlling through pity, and that real adults don't cry over decorations. I swear I saw red. I hadn't known he'd messaged her. I'd had no idea. Ellie hadn't told me because apparently she knew I'd take his side. She wasn't wrong. I drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel so hard my hands hurt. When I walked through the door, Greg was watching TV like nothing was wrong. I didn't even ease into it. I just said, "Why did you message my daughter?" He blinked, confused for a second, then sighed. Because someone had to tell her the truth. You were too scared to do it. I asked him what gave him the right. He shrugged. You invited me into your life. That includes your family. And let's be honest, she's been manipulating you since day one. I said, you don't get to talk about her like that. And he laughed. Oh, come on. Don't get dramatic. You know I'm right. That was the moment I knew something had shifted for good. I told him very calmly that he needed to leave. He said I was being ridiculous, that I'd come crawling back once the loneliness set in. I told him that was fine. I'd take loneliness over being gaslit any day. He left that night. No apology, no hesitation. He packed his things, slammed the door, and didn't even say goodbye. The silence afterward was deafening, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to keep anyone else's peace. The next few days were hard. I kept finding pieces of Greg everywhere. A mug in the sink, his razor on the counter, his jacket by the door. And every time I picked something up, I remembered how easily I'd handed over my life. I also started to see patterns I hadn't wanted to see before. Greg had slowly taken control of everything. Our finances, my schedule, even how I spent my weekends. He'd moved Mark's photos to the hallway, saying they'd depressed the living room. He'd convinced me to sell Mark's old tools because they were taking up space. He even managed to plant the idea that Ellie was manipulative, that she was using grief as power. I thought he was being logical. I realize now he was erasing every trace of the life I had before him. That realization broke something open in me. I sat down and wrote Ellie a message. Not a defense, not an explanation, just the truth. I told her I was wrong, that I'd let my grief and my fear of being alone turn into blindness, that I believed the man who broke something irreplaceable and punished the person who actually understood what it meant. I told her she didn't owe me forgiveness, but I was sorry, truly, painfully sorry. I ended the message with this. You lost your father and I lost my husband. But somehow I made you lose your mother too. That's on me. I don't know how to fix it. I just want you to know I finally see it. I sent it. Then I waited. 3 days passed. No response. I told myself she wasn't ready, that maybe she never would be. Then, on the 4th night, my phone buzzed while I was brushing my teeth. I'm not ready to talk, but I'm glad you finally see it. That was it. One sentence, but it was enough. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just whispered thank you into the empty bathroom and went to bed. It's strange. When Greg left, I thought I'd feel hollow. But instead, it's like I can breathe again. I don't know if Ellie will ever forgive me, but at least now, I'm not lying to myself about what I did. I told the world I didn't choose Greg over her. That was a lie. I did. I chose silence. I chose comfort. I chose the man who made me feel needed instead of the daughter who made me face my grief. But that ends here. I've signed up for therapy. I'm starting next week. For grief, for codependency, for everything. Because if I can't get Ellie back, I can at least stop being the kind of woman who loses herself every time she's loved. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm finally waking up. Final update. Since I last posted, and I'm writing this from the same house, though it feels like an entirely different place now. Quieter, lighter, still scarred, but somehow peaceful in a way I never thought possible again. Greg never came back. Not really. He tried. He sent a few texts at first, calling me dramatic and saying I'd let Reddit ruin a good thing. Then came the guilt trips. I miss what we had. You'll regret throwing away someone who cared. I didn't respond. He called once, and I let it ring until the sound stopped echoing through the kitchen. Then I blocked him. It wasn't anger that made me do it. It was clarity. For the first time in years, I could see the shape of my own life without someone else pressing their fingerprints into it. Therapy has been brutal in the best possible way. My therapist told me early on, "You buried grief alive." I think she's right. When Mark died, I didn't let myself fall apart. I built a wall of busy around me. Work, bills, chores. When Greg came along, I mistook distraction for healing. I thought moving forward meant leaving everything behind, but now I understand that grief doesn't dissolve just because you cover it with new furniture and fresh paint. It waits. I told my therapist about the vase. She said it wasn't just pottery, it was an anchor. a tangible symbol of memory and love. And when it broke, what shattered wasn't clay. It was my illusion that I'd preserved Mark's love while building a new life. The truth is, I'd built that life on top of a grave I refused to visit. Since Greg left, I've reconnected with Mark's sister, Karen. It was awkward at first. I think she pitied me, but she's also blunt enough not to let me wallow. One day, she asked if I wanted to come volunteer at the community art center she runs programs for. It was mostly seniors and kids, and I figured I could help with the books or front desk. The first time I walked in, the smell of clay hit me like a memory I didn't know I'd been missing. They have a pottery studio in the back. I stood there watching an older man shaping a bowl on the wheel, and something inside me cracked open. The next week, I signed up for a beginner's pottery class. The first time I sat at the wheel, my hands shook. I didn't know what I was doing. The clay spun too fast, too uneven. I ruined 2 lumps before I made anything that even resembled a vase. But when the third one finally started taking shape, imperfect, lopsided but real, I cried. Not a breakdown, just quiet tears that fell into the spinning clay. It wasn't about replacing Mark's vase. I'll never have that back. It was about finally understanding what that vase had meant. It wasn't just an object. It was time, patience, love, and imperfection. Everything I'd been running from. I still text Ellie once a week. Nothing heavy, just small things. Hope your midterms went well. Saw a movie you'd like. Sometimes she leaves me on red. Sometimes she sends a single emoji back. But it's something. Last month she called. Not a long conversation, maybe 5 minutes. She told me she was transferring to a college closer to home. I didn't push or ask if she wanted to stay with me. I just told her I was proud of her and that I'd love to see her whenever she was ready. A few days later, she texted, "Let's meet for coffee." I drove to the cafe 20 minutes early. I almost left twice before she walked in. She looked older, more grounded. Still my daughter, but with her own gravity now. She smiled politely when she saw me, and we hugged, though it was careful, not warm. The conversation was short and full of pauses. She asked how I'd been. I told her the truth. Better, but still learning how to be alone. I told her I'd started pottery again, that I was volunteering with her aunt. She looked surprised, then smiled a little. "Dad would have liked that," she said. I nodded. "I think so too." There was a long silence before I spoke again. I didn't plan to apologize, but it came out naturally. "I know I can't fix what I did," I said, "but I can tell you the truth. I picked comfort over honesty. I picked the man who made me feel less broken over the daughter who reminded me of everything I'd lost. You deserve truth, and I'm sorry it took this long for me to see it." She didn't say anything right away, just looked down at her cup, tracing the rim with her finger. Then she said quietly, "You always wanted peace, Mom, but you never asked who was paying for it." That broke me a little, but I didn't argue. She was right. Before she left, she glanced at me and said, "Dad would have loved the vase. Maybe one day I'll come see it." Then she hugged me, not tightly, but real, and walked out. I sat there for a long time, letting the warmth of her words sink in. Maybe she won't ever fully forgive me. Maybe she doesn't have to. The point isn't to erase what happened. It's to stop repeating it. I came home that night and went straight to my pottery wheel. The vase I'd been working on was finally dry. It wasn't perfect, uneven, tilted, the glaze a little patchy, but it was mine. I set it on the same cabinet where Mark's had once stood. For the first time in years, that spot didn't look empty anymore. I don't fill my house with noise now. I used to hate silence because it reminded me of loss. But lately, silence feels like honesty. It means no one's shouting over my doubts. No one's convincing me that love means obedience. Greg's shadow is gone. The ghost of the woman who needed him is gone too. I'm still learning what it means to live without trying to fix everything. My therapist says that's progress, that sometimes healing isn't an act but a surrender. You stop forcing the pieces to fit, and you start building something new from what's left. That's what I'm doing now, piece by piece, clay by clay. I don't know what comes next with Ellie. I don't expect a movie ending, but if one day she walks through the front door and sees this new vase sitting on the cabinet, imperfect, handmade, and whole in its own way, I hope she understands what it means. I hope she knows it's not a replacement, it's a promise. I'll never trade truth for comfort again, and that's the quiet lesson I've learned. Love without respect isn't love, it's dependence, and peace bought through silence isn't peace, it's surrender. So yes, the house is half empty now, but it's mine. And when I look at the small vase catching the light in the window, I whisper to myself the words that finally make sense. I can't bring back the vase, or Mark, or the years I lost. But I can make something new from the shards. Maybe that's all healing ever is.